yourself in when we're prohibited and available in the state of shop.
Dan Schinder here on Drum Talk TV here at NAMM 2014 with Matty Amendola. How are you, Matty?
Hey, man. Good to see you.
Great to see you. And I'm here to present Matty with a $10,000 check for his hair. I'd love to have your hair. I had hair like that, believe it or not. I really did.
If only the business worked that way. And I guess to some degree it kind of does.
Kind of.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Hey, we're here at the Telefunken booth, one of them, and you'll see the other one in another episode where we're going to feature drum mics and things like that. Although, Matty was telling me that he uses this particular mic on your snare and what else?
On guitar cabinets, the M80. I use it on my top snare and my bottom snare. And it's quite similar actually to what they offer in the D5 drum package as well. So yeah, it's a great dynamic microphone, probably the best on the market.
Talk a little bit about it before we get into your career, because I was mentioning to Matty before we started, we have a different mic that will go nameless, and when we started I said, hey, let us use a Telefunken mic for the interview, show it off, and our director, as soon as she heard me do the sound check, was like, oh my God, you got to hear this, and she put the headphones on me, and all of a sudden I was Dan Schinder on the Sunday Night Swing Show here on K-Dan. I mean, it's just amazing how warm it is. I mean, I sound like Felix the Cat in real life without this thing, okay? Just watch another interview, you'll see. But tell us a little bit more about it and about the line if you'd like.
I mean, without getting too technical, the frequency response on this mic is just killer. I mean, so many people talk about SM57, SM58. It's really not that much more expensive, and it is that much better. It's really clear. It's the best dynamic on the market, in my opinion.
And honestly, after hearing it, I think I was told it retails for $240.
Yes,
I think
yes.
It's an amazing microphone for that kind of money. It really is. Now, if you don't know who Matty Amendola is, Matty is an instrumentalist. He's a producer. He's a drummer. He's also the son of a good friend of our shows, Billy Amendola. And if you know who Billy is, then you know who Billy is, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk to Matty about is, as an instrumentalist and a producer who started out as a drummer, first tell us how you started with drums and what you did with drumming, and kind of go through your journey a little bit as it turned into, at such a young age, if you don't mind me saying so, a very prolific producer and composer who recently had a commercial run on TV that you saw if you live in the United States, and we'll talk about it. But I want to find out how drumming has really been an asset in producing and as a composer.
Well, drumming is everything, and you know, I tell everyone they should understand drums no matter what instrument you're playing.
And rhythms in general, right?
Rhythm in general. I mean, the fact that a guitar player can't count eighth notes in between quarter notes is just, you know, it makes me cringe. And it doesn't even stop at musicians. You know, video editors should have that, you know.
Yeah.
So the rhythm, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. You know, what came first, tone or rhythm?
Yeah. Drums.
Yeah, you know, think about that. It's the chicken and the egg. But yeah, I started playing drums. The story basically was that I never slept as a child, and my dad had a studio in the house, so he'd be there at 4 o'clock in the morning working and cutting tape and doing whatever he was doing, and he just put me in a high chair and just let me go for it.
And you're this sponge.
And I apparently, the sponge soaked it in, and by the time I was 5, I was jamming with all his bands and friends, and you know, he was sneaking me into clubs, and I was playing with some like really well-known people.
I was going to say, a lot of these people you know. Can you say any of them?
Yeah, I mean, I played with Tom Scott when I was really young, and Carmine Rojas at a NAMM event, and people that I just, you know, I didn't even know their background, but I just knew that it felt good playing with them on stage, and they seemed to really react to my groove and my timing and the maturity of my playing at such a young age. So from that point, I just kept playing drums. I never really took a formal lesson until college, which I did for 3 months and couldn't stand anything about it.
And that's because, if you don't mind me saying so, I think in most cases it's because your mind already developed and accepted and understood what they were trying to teach academically, but it was already part of your neurology, basically. Yeah. So how do you go backwards? I mean, it's good. I think it's good to take lessons to some degree so that you understand the theory of rhythm and already, but maybe it also had to do in the way it was being presented by the instructor and everything, and you were just so far ahead of that with your experience that it just didn't turn your crank.
And growing up in the studio, you know, my dad always stressed, you know, play for the song, you know, listen to Ringo, listen to Ferroni, listen to Keltner, and so for me, it was always just about playing to the song and playing what felt right. And then from there, the best advice my dad ever gave me was, all right, you're pretty good at drums now. Pick up a bass, pick up a guitar, learn something melodic, because that's what's really going to help you. And he was 100% spot on. So I started playing guitar when I was about 12, and I just started writing songs that were really corny, and you know, but because I grew up in a studio, I was able to track, and I was able to multi-track and get on drums.
It was more about the process than the composition, right?
Exactly, yeah. And then one day I picked up a bass and realized, you know, 12 years old, oh, it's the same thing as guitar. You just got to play the root notes, you know. Right. So that's kind of how the whole multi-instrumentalist thing came about.
Cool. Let's jump ahead to like the first time you started playing in bands and doing that kind of thing. What was that like?
I was young. I was 13, and I was playing all over Manhattan with bands opening up for some pretty big acts. And I also started then venturing into playing in bands on different instruments. So, you know, just out of high school, I was the bass player in a band called the Classic Futures. We did MTV's TRL, and we were on Access Hollywood, and we toured a lot. And for years, people only knew me as a bass player because I was playing.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So
wait. How'd you keep that secret that you're a drummer? Like, okay, so the dude says next to you at a party or a gig a stupid drummer joke. Are you like cringing and you know, or like what's up with that?
Typically, I agree with the drummer jokes. I'm sorry, everyone. You know.
Wait. Okay. So, for the sake of that part of the discussion. Right. You know, they say, I'll just pick one stupid drummer joke. You know how you know that a drummer's at the door? You know how, right?
He knocks.
The knock speeds up. Right. You know how a guitar player's at the door?
Knock slows down.
Comes a half hour late.
That's good too.
In fact, I was telling our VP of Strategy and Content, hey, did you notice the food court over there? There's no one there. Right. This is where we got to come eat. It's not big. She says, that's because it's all guitar players down here and they don't have any money.
Yeah. Very good. I like it.
But go on, I'm sorry, so they didn't know you were a drummer.
Yeah, and we, you know, we had a really big teen following. So we were in full page ads in all the teen magazines, and everyone just knew me as a bass player. For any of our stage.
Did the band know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I could see you saying, "No, dude, move over. Let me show you how to do it."
Well, you know, things like that, like in the studio at sound check when I'm tuning the drums, there were some sticky areas there, and towards the second album, which I was then hired to also produce. This was now 18 years old. I kind of started understanding that I don't want to go into Pro Tools and beat detect. I understand my role here as a bass player, but if you can't nail it in 3 or 4 takes, get back in the control room, and I'm cutting the drums.
I like that.
You know, I learned a lot from that process because no one likes being replaced or anything like that, but as the producer, it's my job to make sure that it's the best it could be, and not spend hours editing and just making it stale and unorganic, you know?
And quite honestly, if you're a drummer that doesn't have good timing, that's all you should be working on. It's not about twirling your sticks, it's not about fills and soloing and playing crazy esoteric music if you can't do timing in the simplest songs. You take Nick Mason, you take Ringo Starr, 2 guys that are the hardest drummers to emulate, yet so many drummers criticize them for playing so simplistically. Yeah. Go try it to a click. Yeah. I mean, seriously.
For people who bash Ringo, I just turn my head. It's not even worth the time. I mean, putting a click on and really understanding how to play behind the beat consistently, be on top of the beat consistently, push ahead of the beat consistently. That's an art in itself that a lot of people have not grasped. You know, and it's a lot of things that schools don't teach either.
And I was just going to say, I don't know how much of that you can learn. I think most of it's innate. You either have it or you don't.
Well, how about a little tip for the more beginners out there? Think of it in flams. Put a click on and make your pick an instrument, whether you're a snare, your kick, or your hi-hat, and make it flam, either ahead or behind the click, and that's how you'll start getting a feel for consistently how to play with the click and make it feel as natural as possible.
That's a great tip to develop that, yeah. And again, as a drummer, that's your main job is timing, and I would say I'm going to test myself on that.
Okay.
And I'll report back honestly, I promise. And because I think it's important to understand timing as a drummer. I mean, if you're a drummer in a band, how many musicians, whether you think they're right or wrong, have said, dude, you're playing too fast? And usually it's you're playing too fast and not too slow, right? And however much they're right or not isn't the point. If it comes up consistently, there might be enough to it where you might want to try and exercise like that and really understand it. So fast forward much further, you just had a commercial that played, for all intents and purposes, internationally, leading up to this event we have in the United States called the Super Bowl. Talk about that.
Well, I do a lot of composing and scoring. MetLife is one of my biggest clients, and they've been calling me for like the last 2 years. Over the summer, I did their commercial for the World Baseball Classic, which was cool for me because not only did I write it and play everything, but I actually sung the lead vocal on it too, which is something I normally...
I didn't know that.
I will always almost, hire a session singer, but I sung the lead vocal, and that aired in 42 countries, so that was pretty cool. And then just a few weeks ago, actually, they called and they said, hey, we got this Super Bowl spot. They already had an existing piece of music, and they just weren't digging the production. They said, what can you do for it? So I didn't necessarily write it. But it was fun to kind of take what they had and bring it to the level I know they wanted it to be at.
And give it your layers of flavor on the production.
Right. Absolutely. So, even though I didn't necessarily write it, it's a 30-second spot that has Matty Amendola written all over it. And it's airing right now. It's been airing, I think, 4 or 5 times a day on all the sports networks. And, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I think that's a good testament to your production because they hired you for your sound, and that's really what a producer gets hired for. In music, the producer is the equivalent as the director in film. The director is the one that makes it look, the producer is the one that makes it sound. Yeah. So that's huge. Yeah. What's next for you? What are you working on that you can talk about?
Well, I'm developing a lot of artists. One of the main artists I'm developing right now is a girl named Katie Lee. Most of her record is done. I've been working with her for about a year now. I co-wrote, played a lot of the instruments on all this stuff, but we also got Mark Hudson to sing some background vocals, and Jody Porter from Fountains of Wayne playing some lead guitar, and Vinny Zumo from Joe Jackson's band, who is a big collaborator with me. And we're shopping this stuff to major labels right now, and I have a 14-year-old kid who's going to blow everyone's mind. I'm not going to even say his name, but follow me on Facebook and you'll be hearing a lot about him in 2014.
Very cool. And Matty's Facebook is right here on the screen. Follow everything that he does. And you know what? Take his advice. Do you blog about this stuff or anything?
There's a site called soundbetter.com. Really cool website to find engineers and producers and musicians, but they have a knowledge-based section. And a few months ago, out on a whim, I just wrote this article about the difference between recording and making a record. And the site told me that they got so much traffic that they begged me to do another one. So I just wrote one a few days ago called How to Be Dangerous, 10 Ways to Be Dangerous in a Good Way. And it's mostly geared towards engineers and producers and mixers kind of just taking more risks. But there's undertones of how I really feel like the industry is just being too safe right now. Now more than ever should people really be focused on change. I mean, the first quarter numbers just came in for record sales. If they stay where they are right now, no one will have money to make records ever again. So now is the time to start a revolution. If there's anything that needs to be saved, it's the music business right now. And if I can just be a little piece of that, just putting out music that's real and honest and bringing it back to a place where it just makes you feel good when you're listening to it, makes you relate to it. It's been shown. Music can change the world. Let's bring it back to a place where it can do that.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you think that's the solution? Is it all about the content? I mean, beyond the economics of economics and beyond the economics of the business, do you think that it's the focus that has to change on the right type of content and not pimping and pushing the wrong stuff that doesn't send the right message?
That's one point. And when you start looking at different markets, I mean, America is, can I curse?
Yeah.
America's all right? When you start going overseas and stuff like that, people appreciate good music. America's got this, it's a little bit of brainwashing. The labels will tell the radio what to play, and the radio will play it over and over again until you're forced to like the song. So it's a little bit of that going on, but music in general, the top 40 records that you're hearing, they've just lost honesty. They've lost the organic. You know, they're very stale, and you know, I can go on about this stuff for days. I don't want to be that guy bashing everything out there either.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know, 'cause there is a lot of stuff out there that's great, especially top 40 stuff that I love. But we got to bring it back to a place where the honesty is showing again.
Are the big labels going to do that, or should there be more emphasis on looking at what's out there with independent labels? Should there be more independent labels sprouting up? Like, how do we could all create great music like that. How do we get it to market that'll do this?
No one knows, and I wish I was the guy to know. So because I'm not, I'm just going to focus on making good records.
Good, and maybe if enough people do that, it'll just happen by itself, and the other stuff will go away by attrition. You know,
exactly.
Great. Anything else you want to mention or talk about?
I would love. Thanks to you. Thanks to Drum Talk TV, and I hope that everyone give me a holler if you're watching this. I'm always on Facebook, and I have a really good relationship with all my fans and friends, and so hit me up. Check out my stuff. You know, it's all over the web. I have a company called 825 Records, which is a music incubator, but it's also a great studio in Brooklyn, New York, which is where I'm born and raised and still reside. So yeah, just check out everything I have going on, and if you love music, you'll love what I'm doing.
That's cool. I love Matty's spirit. I love your sentiment. I love that you're old school in the fact that you're a hands-on guy. You got your finger on the pulse of the people that follow you and the industry itself, and that'll go a long way. It'll pay off in ways that you can't even describe economically. Yeah. So that's cool. Thanks for coming on. Absolutely. Drum Talk TV. Matty Amendola on Drum Talk TV here at NAMM 2014 in the Telefunken booth. See you soon.